years ago now, coming up to 2 years, I ran the Cambridge Half Marathon and I had a cardiac arrest and I was fitted with an EV ICD and I'm here to tell my story and how it's like affected my life and impacted and improved, I guess, because yeah, maybe wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the device potentially. So yeah, I'd done sort of, I think that was my third or my fourth at that point, half marathon, so I'd done a few before and yeah, had a decent time. I wanted to kind of push myself and run it as fast as I could. I had no cardiac problems before that. I'd never, yeah, like I said, I'd done exercise in the same kind of capacity, never had any issues, no family history. Yeah, as far as I was aware, fairly healthy. The race started, I think around about, I remember the last sort of 5K, I remember feeling really tired. So I pulled myself over to the side for a little bit, took kind of a 10-second breather, had some water and then carried on. Again, I was sort of, at that point, I'd done a lot of, the majority of the race at that good pace, and I thought I wanted now to kind of push through and do it as well as I could. So I kept running, and then, yeah, it was sort of around I think it was about a kilometre, a bit less than a kilometre away from the finish line. So, well, I don't remember much, but I remember, again, feeling really, really tired. And I remember someone next to me sort of shouting like, "Oh, go on, push through, you can do it," that sort of thing. And then I woke up in an ambulance, and I can tell you what I was told happened, but that's all I remember physically, yeah. So apparently I kind of ran into the railing and sort of held on and then kind of collapsed. I believe there was 3 medical professionals who came to my aid, one of which being Dr. Mellor.
Hi George, good to see you. How have you been?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Been good, doing good stuff.
I was running the half marathon. Me and my brother were running together. It was clear that George was in cardiac arrest. He wasn't breathing, there was no pulse. He wasn't responding in any way. So we started the resuscitation, the chest compressions. We were joined by another runner who was also a doctor. She was a surgeon, and the 3 of us did the resuscitation for several minutes while a defibrillator was sourced. We got George's information from the back of his bib, his race number. Started to call his emergency contact. Ambulances had already been called, and that process went on for, well, it's difficult to know. Time travels slightly differently in that situation, but I think 10 minutes or so. And eventually, by the time an external defibrillator was sourced, George's pulse had returned, so we didn't need to give him a shock. Soon after that, an ambulance arrived and took him off to hospital.
It's kind of hard to be told that you have had a cardiac arrest, especially when I can't remember it, and obviously that's quite a serious thing. So I don't think I really kind of understood it until I started having quite serious, what felt like quite serious tests, and was kind of hooked up to an ECG, like 24/7. And at that point I was like, oh, actually this feels quite serious. So he sort of gave me these 3 options, and it felt like a little bit of a no-brainer in terms of I've got a smaller device that lasts longer and is newer. So I sort of, it wasn't a hard decision, to be honest.
Yeah, so it's a very unusual situation to be involved at both ends, if you like, of George's care. We know when people have suffered a cardiac arrest, there's a significant risk of it happening again. And of course, you may not always be so fortunate to survive a cardiac arrest. So the decision to implant a defibrillator was quite straightforward. So particularly for our younger patients where we anticipate a long life with their defibrillator, we really want to avoid putting wires inside the heart. So the Extravascular or EV ICD is a great option for that. It provides all the protection of a traditional ICD, but without those long-term lead-related risks. The EV ICD has a few benefits over the other established technology. The device is physically smaller, and I think patient comfort is really important. The projected battery life is also longer, and so reduces the need for re-intervention and again long-term risks. So the EV ICD provides the safety from a defibrillator without the need for a wire inside the heart. It has a small generator with a long battery life and is able to deliver anti-tachycardia pacing as well as defibrillation. This is the lead. It has this sigmoid shape. It sits just below the breastbone and it's inserted through an incision just underneath the bottom of the sternum. And then it's connected to the generator which sits just under the left arm.
The whole point of having this device in my head is to allow me to do that kind of thing and not worry, because if it all works well, that is a protection against anything like that happening again. So I think it would be silly to not do that kind of thing when I enjoy it so much. Obviously, best case scenario, I wish it wasn't there, but it is really helpful, and I think, yeah, I'm grateful to have it, and I really appreciate that it gives me a kind of peace of mind. So if I'm doing exercise and I'm pushing myself, I know that in the back of my head, if something does happen like that again, I have this device that will protect me.
So patients with EV ICDs have no limitations imposed on them in the long run. We would anticipate and hope for our patients to return to their normal activities involving exercise, travel, driving, whatever they want to do. Of course, there are recovery periods after all operations, and depending on people's underlying heart condition, there may be recommendations to avoid certain activities, but the ICD itself does not limit them in any way.
I am often aware of it, but it's never uncomfortable and it never stops me from doing anything, and that's really quite impressive, to be honest.
He'd been in hospital for a few days having various tests when he came round to then have the EV ICD implanted. The procedure was performed as it always is under general anaesthetic. The procedure went well. We didn't anticipate any problems, didn't experience any problems, and he recovered very well from the procedure. So we'd be very supportive for George to go back to running. I know he's already done some running, and as I said, no restrictions at all. So that involves running a marathon if he's up to it.
Recently, I went to Canada, working for a year, and again, I think that if I hadn't had one of these, it probably would have been a harder sell to get my family to let me go and support me in that, if I hadn't had the kind of protection and the aftercare procedures. Obviously, for the EV ICD, you get given a kind of a home remote monitoring box thing, and it's about yay big, and it's very unintrusive. You sort of plug it in, and there's a little kind of remote thing that you sort of link it with your device. And then that automatically pulls the data from the EV ICD into the box, and that's cellularly connected. So that sends the information off to the hospital. So every time it sort of sends the information, they're going to be able to see it if they wanted to. And I believe it then, if it detects a real anomaly that they then need to worry about, they'll get in touch immediately and sort of say you've had this kind of, whatever it may be, kind of arrhythmia or whatever that is important for them to talk to you about. They'll get in touch immediately. Really easy, and it's really nice to have, again, the peace of mind that the hospital will contact me if anything comes up automatically. Since having the EV ICD implanted, I have gone on to continue running fairly regularly. I've gone on lots of long kind of hikes. Actually, 6 months after the 2024 cardiac arrest, I then went on to run the Oxford half marathon and completed it this time, and that was really important for me.
Yeah, it was a unique and, I say, a real privilege to be able to do that for him.